Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Friday, May 5th. It's Cinco de Mayo. It doesn't matter. If it's Cinco de Mayo, it's Oaks Day. It's actually Oaks Day here in Louisville. Right, it's the Friday before the Derby. They have the Oaks race or whatever. I don't know what the hell they do here. I'm not originally from Louisville. They do some. People go out and drink or whatever all weekend. Whatever. That's what's going on here. But it's also Fighting Friday. It's Fighting Friday. Are we fighting with ourselves? No, we're fighting tomorrow. The UFC pay-per-view card. I don't know where the hell they are, but they're somewhere. They're somewhere. I don't know what it's called. UFC 280 something. It's something. 288. It's a 288. I have no idea. They're running out of numbers. I have no idea. But it is, good card tomorrow. Sort of good card. We're losing fights. We're losing fights. It's down to 12 fights, but we'll talk about that today. A little bit short show, obviously, on Fridays because I covered the MMA stuff here. There are free content. Also, there'll be a crunch time leading up to lock tomorrow. Probably 5:15, but now that we've lost another fight, maybe it'll be a little bit later. Maybe the card doesn't start till 6:30. We'll see. You'll see the thumbnail, right? So it'll be about 45 minutes before Slate locks. But if you want to get a head start on a breakdown of all the fights, as well as get our projections, our ownership, our expert survey, Liam's breakdowns, everything, just sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. You get an MMA Premium sub if you'd like, but I mean, I would suggest the Combo Premium. Right? You get the Combo Premium. You get the MLB. You get NBA for the playoffs. You get PGA. You get MMA. Soccer. Soccer's tomorrow, right? We got EPL tomorrow. You get the access to our Discord, our premium Discord, which includes my Game Theory channel, where pretty much you get access to me pretty much anytime you want, right? So that's pretty good. So sign up. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. I see it's UFC Vegas 280 out there. They're in Vegas, but they're not at the Apex. So it's still UFC 288, I guess. Good morning to everyone in the chat. Wata Suki Singh here, usually, right? DFIC, right? You know, who came in like fifth in the $15 whatever the hell yesterday, right? The MLB one. Those payout structures are. I mean, now you see. Now you see the reason why you want you should, to reduce your variance, have flatter payouts, right? You come in fifth, and you get $2,000. First is like 50,000. So it's something like what it was like 50,000, 20,000, 10,000, 5,000, 2,000. You know how ridiculous that is, right? You get all the way. You beat tens of thousands of people. $2,000. There you go. Here's a very expensive set of steak knives, but I mean that'll add to your bankroll. But you'll get up there one of these days. So congratulations on you for that. So hit the thumbs up button for that. Give me those thummy thumbs in the morning. It wakes me up. It's not just the Starbucks Frappuccinos or whatever. Hit those thumbs up buttons. And Peter Corey says the pay-per-view is in Newark. Okay, it's in Newark. Okay, well, is it not Vegas 288? I'm just looking at hashtag. I'm just looking at Twitter. People on Twitter are getting it wrong, I guess. But we got a card tomorrow. It's gotten less interesting now that we've had less fights because we oh my God. I mean, the fight got canceled yesterday. So we got the Santos Munoz fight was canceled yesterday. And now we have the Rafael Estevam had weight cutting problems or whatever. So that fight's off against Zumagulov. And I wasn't a big fan of Zumagulov. He semi-retired, and now he's back with some weird haircut. So that fight's off. And then we also have Joseph Holmes missed weight by 4 pounds, it looks like, or 3 pounds. They're allowed 1 over or something, right? 189. So that fight's still going on against Claudio Ribeiro, but he'll be sacrificing 20% of his purse. Oh, okay. So on this card, the interesting thing on this card, obviously, if you're paying attention, you know, like the main event is a title fight. So the main event is Cejudo versus Sterling. Cejudo hasn't, fought in 3 years. So I don't know how he's going to look. And then Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad. It's a non-title fight, but it is a 5-round fight. Okay, so just if for not some odd reason you didn't realize it, oh, it's not a title fight. So there's only one 5-rounder. No, there's two 5-rounders on this slate. And the two 5-rounders are the closest fights on the slate. So we see the pricing. Burns Muhammad is 8,200, 8,000, and Cejudo and Sterling are the same price at 8,100. Okay, and on top of this, we'll talk about the main event as well as the two main contextual variables that we always need to look at for an MMA slate. So the main events, the 5-round fights, more likely than not, go more than 3 rounds. Okay, so these are going to be higher floor type of affairs, as well as the fact that at their price points, right, 8,200, 8,100, it's more and more likely that they'll end up in the nut lineup, right, the optimal lineup. Maybe not both of them, right, but it's probable that one of the, getting 90 points out of an 8K fighter, a lot of times is good enough, depending on the size of the card. And that's why we look at the two main contextual variables that we need to consider when determining the construction, the more probable constructions of lineups. That will be the nuts. That will be the best possible lineup, the optimal lineup. Now, originally we had 14 fights. So on 14 fight cards, it's like, oh, we have to put a little bit more priority on ceiling. There's more fighters that have a chance of putting up 100 plus points. So having a fighter that even at 7,200 that puts up 70 is not may not make the nut lineup. It will only make the nut lineup if like all the favorites win, right? But we also look at the second contextual variable, the spreads of the fights. Now I've already set up my sheet, although the ownership is going to be all off now because we have a fight cancel. I mean, they just did the weigh-in, so we have to update all of our numbers and everything and the projections. And I have lines from yesterday. But we see here that the spreads of the fights, for the most part, are quite small. Other than one, which is Bryce Mitchell pulled out earlier this week against Movsar Evloev, and a last-minute replacement. So on 3 days' notice, Diego Lopez is coming in for him. He's actually the same price as Bryce Mitchell, so he's 6,800. But Evloev now is a minus 900 favorite. Okay, he would have been against Bryce Mitchell like a minus 240 or something favorite at 9,400. Now he's a minus 900 favorite. And there's barely any ITD lines that are out, but I seen one that's plus 115 and plus 550 for Diego Lopez. So if we take a look here, even in the inside the distance lines, like it looks like from a probabilistic standpoint, there's going to be a lot of finishes on this slate. I mean, a lot of these fights, more than half of these fights are favored to end inside the distance. And then we take a look at the spreads of the fights. Evloev is obviously a humongous favorite, 9-1. Chaos Williams is 3-1. Drew Dober is barely over 2-1. And everything else is inside, 65-35. Inside 3-2, 5-2, something like that. Not 5-2, but you know what I'm talking about. Like minus 185, minus 180, minus 170, minus 195. There are a lot of live underdogs on this slate. What their ceiling is as underdogs, that's a different story. But this is a type of slate where it's 12 fights, which means once we're in the middle ground. So it's like, it's possible that 90 points could make the optimal lineup, depending on the salary, which puts a little bit more priority on the two 5-round fights, right? It's more and more likely that at least one of these 5-round fighters makes the optimal lineup because it's 12 fights and rather than 14. We go down to 10, it's even more likely, just for the lack of options. And because the spreads are, for the most part, closer, that a lineup that leaves 800 on the table has enough win probability as a lineup that doesn't, right? I'm not sure it'll be like the week before, like last week. Last week, the optimal lineup would have left like, 4,000 on the table or something? Something like that. But it's one of those types of slates to some degree. The only difference is that we have two 5-round fights. But the thing is that it's quite easy to fit these people in. So if we take a look at the most probable type of lineup construction, we look at the most probable lineup construction because we kind of want to avoid duplication in large field GPPs. And it's same for small field, but definitely in large field GPPs. So the chalk of the slate is Movsar Evloev at 9,400, minus 900 favorite, and he grapples a ton. Okay, so his floor is high, his ceiling is high, everything is high. So he's going to be by far the most owned fighter in the 9K range. And then we have the mid-range is the 2 5-round fights. A lot of lineups are going to have 2 of these fighters. It's going to be, Burn Cejudo, Burn Sterling, Cejudo Muhammad, Cejudo Sterling Muhammad, like something like that. I'm not a huge fan of the ceilings of these fights, like from like 120, 130 points. But I think it's quite likely that the winners of these fights scored 90 plus. So most of my lineups, I'm playing 100 lineups tomorrow. In most of my lineups, I will have 1 5-round fighter. Maybe not 2, but if I have 2 in, I'm going to have to get different elsewhere. So you can see the most probable type of construction will be something like Evloev, Burns, right? Cejudo, something. I mean, they're similar pricing. So, I mean, we don't have to worry about like, if you don't play Cejudo, you can play Sterling in the same lineup to the same price. So Evloev, Burns, Cejudo, and then probably one of these kind of mid-range level fighters. So we're talking about like Ribeiro, Andrade, or Porter, right? That Porter-Smith fight is like minus God knows what to end inside the distance, right? That may not, I mean, Braxton Smith has not lasted more than 2 minutes and 8 seconds in a fight, and Parker Porter has almost no chin. But that fight, that's a weird fight. Because Braxton Smith is really not even an MMA fighter. I mean, literally, he's really not an MMA fighter. Like he has one fight in the UFC in 2014 that he lost in 2 minutes, got knocked out, and has not competed in the UFC since then. That is quit fighting. Didn't even fight. I mean, like literally quit until a year ago. And then he racked off, 5 knockout victories in less than 2 minutes against bums, essentially. He's a former football player that, like, I don't even think has a gym. Like, literally doesn't have a gym. Like the amount of skill Braxton Smith has is basically he's just a big football player, and then he just like, I'm just going to throw my hands. Non-technical, whatever. I'm just a big guy with power. And if I hit someone, they go down, and if I don't, and it's past 2 minutes, I'm dead. I don't know what's going to happen after that. So that's a really weird fight, which has a really low floor. But either of these 2 fighters could, put up 100 quick win bonus, right? Multiple knockdowns or something. So I see like Andrade, Ribeiro, because Ribeiro also has a good inside the distance line, right? Ribeiro's minus 125 inside the distance. Porter's minus 115 inside the distance. Andrade is a high value. I mean, from a female fighter perspective, Andrade is people play Andrade because she does score well. She can also land takedowns. She's high volume on the feet, right? I think this is a much closer matchup. I mean, it is. I mean, it's minus 195. It's like Yan Janan probably has a limited ceiling, right? She's basically just a one-dimensional, Muay Thai fighter or something. I mean, just basically a striker. That's why plus 700 inside the distance. She has win equity, but I don't know what her ceiling is necessarily. But I see those as the fighters. Maybe some on Drew Dober, but you have to remember Drew Dober's 9,200, right? Chaos Williams has the best inside the distance line at minus 145, but Chaos Williams is very knockout dependent. Like the difference between Evloev and Williams is like night and day from a path to victory standpoint, a path to 100 points. Like Evloev doesn't get many finishes, but he also scores 100 plus in a 3-round decision. Chaos Williams in a 3-round decision will not score 100 points. I mean, Chaos Williams is just basically a stand-up power puncher. And he's basically facing a guy that just runs forward with no defense. Perfect matchup for him. Maybe he does get the quick win bonus. But that's the main difference, is that Williams' path to victory is basically, if he doesn't finish someone in 5 minutes, 9,500, he's not going to pay off that price tag. Obviously, unless he gets 4 knockdowns or some type of outlier occurrence like that. But for the most part, if he doesn't get a first-round knockout, he's probably not going to make the optimal. And Drew Dober against Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola, that's going to be an action fight. That may be fight of the night. And Frevola is like a kill or be killed guy. He probably should wrestle. He probably won't. Right? He even voted. Like last fight, he voted. He had the Twitter vote on should he stand and bang or grapple, and he chose to stand and bang, which I think he's going to do anyway. I think Dober kills him anyway. But Dober's going to be KO dependent as well. But at 9,200, it's a little bit harder to fit other people in. So you'll see some ownership on Dober, right? Because you have average remaining player salary $75.50, right? I think it's more likely you'll see Andrade. Like, can you fit Andrade and Porter in? Now you have to play like a $6,900 guy, right? You're probably not going to go down there. So, like, if you play Andrade, you're probably playing like someone like Kron Gracie, right? Kron Gracie, and then something Jandaroba or Bilal Muhammad or something, or you mix it around. You have some Braxton. If you play Braxton Smith, it's going to be something like this, right? Andrade, Smith, Kron, maybe a little bit of Jandaroba. Like, people will be hovering around this mid-range. That's what a lot of constructions are going to look like. It's going to be one pay-up, one semi-high 8K type of option, Andrade or Porter, and then 2 of the 5-round fighters. So even if you put Porter in here, Evloev, Burns, Cejudo, Porter, right? And you can still put Kron Gracie in here, and you have 8,200. I mean, like, you could do whatever you want in the mid-range, right? If you didn't play Burns and you played Muhammad instead, you can now go up. You can't even go up because Estevam is we can't even play Estevam. We can't play Zumgulov, right? So these 5-round fights are going to be massively owned. I mean, massively owned. I think each of these guys now with these 2 fights gone, with the Munoz fight, which was a mid-range fight, as well as the Estevam fight, I could see every one of these 5-round fights. Cejudo, Burns, Sterling, Muhammad will all be 40+%. Maybe Muhammad comes in at 37 or something. I mean, maybe it's something like that. So you have to be really careful when you play both of them together, and especially if you play both of them together with Evloev. I think, like, to me, those are the constructions you stay away from. Like, if you wanted to group out Evloev and all the 5-round fighters and say, like, max 2, I think that would be a good general rule. If you're just like, okay, I want to make more unique lineups, less duplicated lineups. But you can make lineups that have Evloev and 2 5. Like, if you want to do Evloev, Sterling, Muhammad, right? You want to do something like this. It's like these are the lineups that you want to play, like Kennedy and Njukwu, or Charles Jourdain, or Marina Rodriguez, right? You do something like Alex Zareff will be decently owned against Taz, but like that's the type of lineup, right? You play Njukwu, or you play Jourdain is leverage against the Kron Gracie ownership. So I think Kron Gracie will be, but I think Kron Gracie will be the highest owned underdog outside of the main the 5-round fighters, who are barely, like, is Sterling or Muhammad really that much of an underdog? So if you wanted to play like Jourdain, you do something like this: 7,900 left. You play Jourdain, you play like you made Joseph Holmes. Then you have 8,500. You play Marina Rodriguez. Like, yeah. Then you could do this. Like, something like this would be doable. It's like, yeah, I am playing. Like, this lineup has Evloev, and it does have 2 5-round fighters in it, but it has much lower owned in the 3 other spots. Still a 50K lineup. This lineup still will probably be duped, but not. This may be an under 5 type of lineup. So if you do want to play the Evloev 2 5-round fight combinations, just make sure you play probably 2, not just 1. Not just, I'm just going to play Njukwu in this lineup. Like, I think you need 2, like, sub 20% owned fighters in your lineup minimum. But once you start limiting it to, like, well, I'm going to play Evloev plus 1 of the 5-round fighters. Well, now you can play an Andrade. You can play a Porter. You can play a Kron Gracie or a Braxton Smith. You could play Phil Hawes, even though I'm not a big fan of him being that high owned. Like, then you could do something like that. If you don't play Evloev, then it's more like, okay, I'm going to play 2 5-round fighters, but instead of Evloev, I play Dober or Alexarov or Chaos Williams. And these guys are not going to be low owned. I think Williams, Dober, and Alexarov will all be 20+% owned. But it'll cut down on the dupes. And then if you want to get even a little bit weirder, just play one of the 5-rounders and still no Evloev. And now you instead of playing Evloev, you're playing Dober. You're doing something like Dober Alexarov or something like that. You're playing 2 9K fighters, neither of them being Evloev. Then if you want to get really, really weird, you don't play Evloev or either of the 5-round fighters. That would be the most unique path. Do I play any of those type of lineups? I'm not sure. I think the mid-range, with the lack of an $8,400 and $8,300 fight, and the fact that these at 8,000, 8,100, 8,200, you don't necessarily need 100+ points. And the fact that I'm not sure what's the ceiling of like a Yan Janan or a Devin Clark, or even like, Diego Lopez or something like, what are the ceilings of these guys? I just think like the most likely outcome that even in under 5 type of lineups, they'll still contain 1 5-round fighter. The thing is that you got 4 to choose from. These 5-round fights are really close. So it's not the type of thing we're not playing a $9,000, $7,200 fight. So it's like, I don't even want to break down like who do you play in this range. I think they all have similar medians, similar ceilings. Probably Bilal is probably the lowest ceiling out of the bunch. But Sterling, it really depends on how the fights play out. Like if Sterling keeps his distance against Cejudo, like that fight could kind of grind to a halt. And then Burns and Muhammad will probably be much more higher pace. Only because Gilbert Burns will probably push the pace. The thing is that Bilal Muhammad is an extremely smart fighter. May not be good for DFS at times. Well, all you can know about Bilal Muhammad, if you watch plenty of his past fights, is that he studies his opponents and his fight IQ is stellar. He typically doesn't make mistakes. He typically goes in with a game plan that stymies the other person. Are we going to see takedowns here? I don't know. Like Cejudo would be better off like trying to take Sterling down, but you also have to realize Sterling is actually a better submission grappler than Cejudo. Cejudo's a better wrestler, but Sterling's one of the best back takers in UFC history. So does Cejudo really want to take down Sterling a bunch of times? I don't know. But now with all the fight cancellations and everything, I mean, the ownership, I'm going to have to look into that. That's why like my sheet isn't even complete. Like I can't really see like who's over-owned, who's under-owned. I'm not even sure. The mid-range fighters are these 5-round fighters are going to get a lot more ownership now than originally projected because the $84 and $8,300 fighters are gone. And I think everything will push towards Evloev, Andrade, Porter, Burns, Cejudo, Sterling, Muhammad, then Braxton Smith because of ITD line of +170, Kron Gracie +210, and Kron Gracie kind of scares me. Right? Kron Gracie hasn't fought in a couple of years either, right? The last time he fought, he didn't even attempt a takedown into the 3rd round. And that's how he wins. He tried to stand and strike. Before that, he hadn't had a fight in a long time. I mean, obviously, with his last name, Gracie, you know what he's very competent in, right? Top-level black belt BJJ, right? Because it's from the Gracie family. But if he just comes in and says, no, I'm not going to decide to grapple, like he may, I mean, I don't know what he's going to look like, right? Fight IQ, who the hell knows, right? At chalk, right? If he comes in at 28, 30% owned, but he's plus 210 inside the distance. And if he takes someone down, like he's probably going to submit you. It's probably going to happen, right? He's a Gracie. Anything in the chat? Post your questions. Post anything you want. This is kind of like a first look. I mean, a lot of times I've looked through numbers already, but I mean, with fight cancellations and line movements and replacement fighters, kind of just like, okay, what are people most likely going to do? And he gets a little bit different. And then once some ownership numbers play out, I'll have a little bit more of an assessment tomorrow on Crunch Time. Defix says ITD Evloev is plus 115. Plus 115 on one book. I don't know if it's across the board. It's somewhere like that. I mean, do I have to be exact at this moment? No. Someone in the chat wants to cancel their subscription. I have no idea. Go ahead. Support at rotogrinders.com. I have no contact with any of that. I have no idea. I'd probably contact support. Right, here we go. Yeah, even in Steve in the chat. So anything else about this slate that stands out? I mean, just at the ITD line. I mean, look at the ITD lines of even the underdogs. And they're not big underdogs. I mean, look, Matt Pravola is 7K and he's plus 175 to win. Like even Rolando Bedoya against Chaos Williams isn't like he's plus 450 inside the distance. I mean, sometimes we see down here, these guys are like 800, 900, 10 to 1 inside the distance. I don't think Chaos Williams loses to Rolando Bedoya, but hey, one lucky punch, you never know. And there's a lot of I suspect based on the odds out of these 12 fights, I mean, I would not be shocked if there were 9 or 10 finishes. I would not be shocked. I think on average there'll be 7 or 8. But I mean, like the Porter Smith fight, hard to see that go in 3 rounds. I mean, if it's in the 3rd round, these people they're going to look like they're just wobbling. It's going to be sloppy. They're not going to do anything. Then we got the Gracie Jourdain fight. That's more. I mean, look, plus 130 for Jourdain and plus 210, right? If Gracie wants to just say I'm going to strike, Jourdain's probably going to kill him, right? I'm not a big fan of Jourdain as a talent or whatever, but he's obviously going to have a striking advantage against Kron Gracie. The one fight that is the least likely to end inside the distance is the Marina Rodriguez-Jandiroba fight. And Jandiroba has much more upside as a grappler. The thing is that Jandiroba, I don't think she's ever won. Don't quote me on this. I don't think she's ever won a 3rd round. I mean, ever. I mean, she's had plenty of fights in the UFC. I don't think she's ever, on scorecards, has ever won a 3rd round. So I think it's the type of thing. And Marina Rodriguez has, volume striking. And Jandiroba has, like, barely any striking defense. So I don't know. But at plus 365, that's why Marina Rodriguez is probably going to be the lowest owned favorite on the slate. Probably around 10 to 12%. Want to get different, that would be a way to go. I think Kennedy Njoku is going to be a little bit under-owned. I think so. Plus 140 inside the distance. But his path, he's got 5 minutes to get 100 points. Right? He's facing Devin Clark, who could get deaded. I mean, that whatever, but I mean, it's a minus 180 plus 158 fight. So it's like you're paying $9K for a fighter that on other slates would probably be like 8,400. But you could say that with a lot of them. That's why, like, the reason why Njoku is not going to be as owned is because, like, Alex Skarov or whatever is Ikram, whatever. I mean, his only loss was to Kazmat Chimaev. He's won every other fight, and he's a grappler. But he's also facing Phil Hawes, which is a pretty tough matchup for your first UFC fight. Phil Hawes has never given up a takedown. But Phil Hawes has also been knocked out and also gassed in the 2nd round. So who the hell knows? Who the hell knows what happens there? And then we have Williams and Dober, who are a little bit more KO dependent. Right? Less reliant on, 3 rounds of control. That's why, like, Evloev just feels he's minus 900, and you know how he fights. Right? Typically, not that popular on a lot of slates because he doesn't finish many people. But most likely, he's getting a couple of takedowns. And, like, if he doesn't finish him, I mean, he could have 10, 12 minutes of control. He is the easiest path to 100 points in any regard. But that's why I think he's going to be 45 to 50% owned. Then once you combine that with the mid-range 5-round fighters, they'll all be 40+% owned. Imagine playing 2 5-round fighters at 40% each and Evloev at 50%. Like, you got 3 spots left, and you're half your lineup is already duped by like a quarter of the field. Like, that literal lineup has like a quarter of the field. If that lineup wins first place, you and your 74 friends will have a good time spending your $1,200 or whatever. It's really not a way to be profitable long term. But we got enough options. It's a 12-game slate. It's a 12-fight slate. And pretty much everyone's live. Right? You can play anyone. I'm not a big fan of playing. Diego Lopez seems like a stretch. Obviously, mega leverage. Right? If Evlo is going to be 50% owned and Lopez is going to be 6% owned, I mean, it could happen. I mean, Lopez would just basically need to get a Hail Mary submission. So it's not like Lopez is a striker. Lopez is actually a grappler. But Evloev is probably light years ahead of him. But yeah, that's kind of a first look-see at the slate for Fighting Friday. And while we're fighting, why don't you fight and punch that like button? Punch the thumbs ups. Give me the thummy thumbs. I'm a little bit more awake. Smash it, as it says on the screen. Smash it, hit it. Do whatever the hell you want. Right? Press all the buttons. Right? And get your questions in. Remember what the normal version of the show. You know, Mondays through Fridays, I'm here, 11 o'clock Eastern. Send in your questions about DFS strategy, any sport. It could be anything. Sports betting, prop betting, bankroll management, contest selection, anything. Anything involved getting an edge. Fantasy sports type games. Email them in. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. You send them in, and I answer them on the show. So go do that. Hit the thumbs up button, as I'm always prompting you to do. And then I will see you next week. See you next week. And then after that, I'm going to be off for 2.5 weeks. So you better come back for next week. Are you going to miss me? Because I'll be gone from May 15th through the 31st. I know I'm going to get probably 17 DMs after a couple of days saying, am I dead? Is the show done? Did you get fired from RotoGrinders, even though I'm an independent contractor and can't get fired anyway? But I'm going to get those. But I'm just going to let you know, from May 15th to the 31st, I will not be here. You will not see a thumbnail with my face on it. So I'm going to Alaska on a cruise for a week and then going to Las Vegas. So I'll be gone. I'll be gone for 2.5 weeks. Yeah, I'm going on an Alaskan cruise with my wife and her mother and our nephew, 11-year-old nephew. And we're going directly. They're going home. Like that my mother-in-law and nephew are going to fly back to Louisville. And then me and my wife go straight from Seattle to Las Vegas, where we're going for AEW, right? Dynamite and Double or Nothing, their pay-per-view and convention. And there's a couple other wrestling shows. So we'll be there. Like we did this last year also. Memorial Day weekend. So I'll be doing that. But hey, get your questions in. I'll answer them when I get back, even after that. Or come back and get as many as you can in next week to get your fill. Right? Because I'm always here answering them. Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.